The following is a sponsored program paid for by First Alliance Credit Union. Welcome to Good Money Moves, featuring Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union and Andy Brownell. Here's Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk, 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome to Good Money Moves. I'm Andy Brownell, along with Jenna Taubel, Director of Brand and Digital Member Experience. How you doing, Jenna?
I'm great. How about you, Andy?
Doing well. So we've recently talked about the history of First Alliance Credit Union, 90 years going strong, along with saving strategies using CDs, certificates of deposits.
Yeah.
What's the Good Money Moves topic we're talking about today?
Yeah. So, I mean, as you mentioned, over the past couple of weeks, we've talked quite a bit about certificates of deposits and how to use them. And we talked about a specific strategy using CDs called the CD ladder. So we've, in short, we really talked a lot about the advantages of opening a CD to help your savings grow. But of course, there are other places to put aside money that you're saving, either as part of your emergency fund or some other financial goal. And really the most obvious other place that most people are going to think of is a savings account. So really almost everybody, that's where they start when they start saving money, even as a kid. That's the first thing you do is you open up a savings account. And why is that? Because it's easy to open. You automatically get one when you become a member of the credit union. Like, there's easy to deposit and withdraw money from. There's just not a lot to think about with a savings account. You put your money there and you make a little interest and you take it out if you need it. There's not a lot of bells and whistles to them. They're pretty straightforward. But this does lead to kind of an important question, though, is when really should you consider opening a CD versus just keeping your money in that traditional savings account? So we are going to kind of talk today a little bit about the benefits of keeping your money in a savings account versus keeping it in a CD, and then talk a little bit about the situations where you might want to keep your money in one versus the other.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So where do we get started?
Yeah. So, like I said, almost everybody has a savings account. So let's just start there, the easy basic stuff. So savings accounts are very, very common. And because of that, a lot of people do tend to overlook the huge benefits that they can actually offer you as a savings tool. So usually, number one, you don't need a lot of money to get started with a savings account. To open one at the credit union, for instance, you only need $5. And other financial institutions, they might require $20, or if it's some kind of specialty savings account, maybe $100, something like that. But typically, the initial investment into a savings account is very low.
And you think about it with First Alliance Credit Union, that's quite a bargain too, because when you get that savings account with just $5, you would hope you put more in there, but just to get started, it gives you access to all of these tools that we've been talking about for months and months and months.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, really, consider it your membership fee if you have to, but it really is very low cost to get started with a credit union savings account.
Well, it's still your money. You didn't give it to you.
It is. Right. Yeah. If you leave, you take that $5 with you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We don't hold on to it indefinitely. That's for sure. But that's kind of leads me to the next benefit really of savings accounts. And that really is that they are very versatile, right? So you can deposit money into them at pretty much any time, right? I mean, there's not really typically a limit on how much you can keep in a savings account. And even from a depositing standpoint with today's technology, right, we have our advisor supported kiosks at First Alliance. So you can deposit money into your savings account 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even if we don't have staff on hand and you want to deposit a check or some cash, you can do that. Or even like our mobile app, you can do a remote deposit of a check that you've received through the app. Right. I mean, there's lots of ways to go about doing that, and they're all connected to that kind of core savings account. So again, they're very versatile. I
still can't get used to how cool that is to deposit checks using the app on the phone.
I know. I know I don't get a lot of checks, to be honest, but I really do take a weird level of joy in taking a picture of it and going, yes, I cashed my check.
It used to be, you get paid with a check or for something like a gift that everybody's gathering together to buy somebody. Yeah. And you go, now I got to go down to the credit union. And I got to go and sign this. And, nope. Click, it's done.
Yep. So easy. So easy. Absolutely. Yeah. And, you can use your savings account too. Like this, another huge benefit. You can save for anything in it. There's no like strings attached to keeping the money in that traditional savings account, right? It's not, you can only use it for this or for this period of time, or if you don't do these things, you'll get feed or anything like that. It's just stick your money in there for somewhere safe to keep it, right? So, and then of course, we've talked about depositing money and how convenient that is with this traditional savings account. Well, withdrawing money is just as convenient, right? So, there's, in most cases, I don't know what the policies are at every financial institution, but in most cases, there's no penalty to take money out of your savings account. And, this might not seem like a big deal, but many other types of savings accounts, savings vehicles, tools, if you will, they don't let you do that. There's limitations on that. And we've talked about that before with things like CDs and money markets, right? There's some caveats to how much you can access your funds. As well, with savings accounts, you have access to your money, again, almost at any time. And you'll even get to build interest on the money that you let sit in the account, which just gets better and better the longer that you keep it there. This is not so true. Like that easy access is not true for things like if you've invested in mutual funds, stocks, government bonds. In these cases, sometimes there's a waiting period to get your money and even fees or tax implications to accessing your funds, especially if there's some kind of term attached to any of that. So those are some things to consider as well, that, that savings account, it just seems like an everyday thing, but it's really a really powerful tool in helping you manage your savings effectively.
Excellent. Yeah. I like the idea. Like you said, you can invest in all these other things, but some of them it can take, literally weeks.
Yeah.
To get your funds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not quick. They're not liquid. Yes, you can cash them out. You can get your money out of them, but it's not a convenient process. It's not going to help you in your day-to-day life. You really have to do a lot of planning around managing those funds in a way that you just don't need to do that with a typical savings account. Now, there's cost and benefit to that, right? Obviously. Sure. You're probably making a better return on things like mutual funds and individual stocks than you are in a traditional savings account, but you have to weigh those benefits.
But I'm guessing, I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm guessing that it's probably universal advice that you do keep at least a chunk of money in a traditional savings account for the reasons you just outlined.
Exactly.
All right. We'll get started on this, but we'll take a break in a few minutes as well. What are the benefits of going with the CD or certificate of deposit?
Yeah, so a certificate of deposit really has one huge benefit over the savings account, and that really is that higher interest rate that you're going to receive in return for keeping your funds in the CD. So the interest rate on a certificate of deposit is really exponentially higher than the rate that you're going to get on a traditional savings account. And, even better, the longer the term of the CD. So in other words, how many months the CD is open for, the better interest rate you're likely to get on that. So if you take out a CD at 6 months, you're going to get a decent return over what you would get on a traditional savings account. But if you take out a CD for 60 months, so 5 years, you're going to get a significantly higher interest rate. And the reason for that is because you're agreeing to keep those funds on hand at the credit union for longer. And therefore, you kind of get the reward of, we're going to pay you better for that because you're guaranteeing to keep those funds with us. And it's kind of in a nutshell how that works and why it's set up that way. But also, yeah.
At the same time, the financial institution is promising you that interest rate will remain unchanged for the entire time it's in there.
Exactly.
Because your other rates can change.
Exactly. Yeah, those CD rates are stable. You do not have to worry once you lock it in. That rate is going to be that rate for the entirety of that CD until it matures. And so you don't have to worry about market fluctuations with your savings rates on a CD. And that's really, and one of the big benefits of that CD is, if you lock in that rate, you're safe. You don't have to worry about potentially taking a loss the way that you would with other types of investing. So yes, CDs are excellent choice as well.
I like the idea with the stability too. If you're planning a budget and you need so much income from your investments, you can say, okay, I know for this period of time, I'm going to pull this much income off this investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can plan very well with a CD. You will know for sure, in being able to calculate that return, that it's straightforward. You're going to get exactly what you anticipate to get. It's not a guessing game. Absolutely.
I'm already at that age where we're starting to discuss the return on the investment for a fixed income. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's part of life, isn't it? You do have to have those conversations eventually. And, this information can be really useful and helpful, in figuring out how much closer you're going to be to reaching those financial goals. Like, I need so much income when I retire to live my lifestyle I want to live. And how can a CD help me do that by earning interest or by ensuring I have money coming available, like when we talked about in that CD laddering strategy throughout the year, things like that. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break. We're going to talk a little bit more about certificates of deposits and CDs, the advantage thereof, or, the savings account and or whatever combination you wish to choose as part of Good Money Moves on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good Money Moves continues in moments with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. We're talking Good Money Moves with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back. Good Money Moves. Jenna Taubel with First Alliance Credit Union with us, of course, and we've been talking about savings accounts and certificates of deposits and the advantages of both of them, and we covered pretty much the advantages of the CDs, the higher interest rates, the stable interest rates. There's one we haven't really covered, and this one I like the best is that if I park that money there, I can't touch it for a while.
Yeah, that's a great point, Andy. Yeah, CDs definitely remove any temptation that you have to spend the money that's there. I mean, you really can't touch the money in the CD before it matures, and technically you can, but you are going to take a pretty big penalty for taking that money out early, and it's going to negate any interest that you would have accrued on those funds. So if you do need to access those funds, it better be for a very, very good reason.
Yeah.
And so it really is a great way to ensure that you just stay focused on your financial goals. And, it can also help for keeping like a portion of your emergency funds in a CD to, again, help avoid the impulse of using that for something that maybe isn't actually the emergency you're making it out to be. Maybe you could use those funds for somewhere else, or maybe it actually makes more sense to just take out a small loan to cover that cost because you can afford the payment to pay it back. So I think having a CD for your funds and to help you reach those financial goals that you have is a great way to help you stay on track. And I think that a lot of people they get scared that they won't be able to touch the money. But if you were not planning to use that money for something in the first place, you shouldn't be afraid to just let it sit there and earn a better interest rate.
But this vacation is an emergency.
Well, it might be a mental health emergency. This is true. We all have those.
But that is the beauty of it. You don't have this when it's in just the regular savings account and you're planning the vacation. It's like, let's move over $1,000 from there, and we can, cover this expense and that.
Exactly.
This will make it very difficult and way less tempting to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I think we've done a pretty good job. You have, not me, but summed up the benefits of savings accounts and CDs. So where are we at, and where are we going next?
Yeah. So this is where I think it's important to start to talk about when should you put your money in a savings account and when should you put it in a CD, because as much as CDs are an excellent tool, they're not going to be the right fit for every situation. And again, pretty much everyone uses a savings account, and that's where you just kind of start saving. So you'll want to, if you are new to saving, or you don't have a ton of money saved up, or maybe you're not even clear on what your financial goals that you're saving for are yet, start with that savings account. It's the easiest place to put your money, right? And this is probably the number one spot to park your emergency fund as you're getting started. Now, if you're putting aside money, let's say for multiple financial goals at a time, again, use a savings account. So for instance, if you're setting aside money for an emergency fund, a new car, and a new dishwasher, put all of that money into a savings account for starters. And again, it'll be easier to deposit the money for all of these goals into the savings account. And then you can use a separate file to keep track of what money you're allocating to what goals, if that's how you want to manage that. And you also don't have to worry about, the reason I say start off with a savings account is you don't have to worry so much about meeting some of those minimum deposit requirements that come with CDs. And typically with CDs, you can't add more funds to them. So you have to have that money up front. So when you're getting started, using that savings account is really what is going to be what makes the most sense for you, right? Because all you have to do is put the cash you're saving into that account and then keep that record of what you're doing. So
can I also create separate accounts for the different things I'm saving for?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's no necessarily right or wrong number of savings accounts to have, as long as it's what makes sense for you and you can keep track of it. So if you're the kind of person who, is like, no, I need to have separation between these things, or I'm going to forget what I was doing with it, by all means, go ahead and open up additional savings accounts to keep track of that. You'd have one for your emergency fund, one for that new car, one for that new appliance.
Gotcha.
Totally fine. Yeah, but again, don't overcomplicate it for yourself if you're just getting started is kind of the key.
Yeah, because I'm speaking from experience that if there is one of these savings accounts and perhaps you do lose track of it, if they sit dormant for too long, the financials are required to end the account, and then it goes into a lost money account with the state of Minnesota after a certain period of time.
Yeah. So yes, but if at least in the case of First Alliance, you can have multiple savings accounts in your membership and never touch one of them, as long as the rest of your account is active in some way. That you don't have to worry about that. It's when you completely stop touching your membership altogether, you don't log. So that's a whole nother show.
Well, once again, another advantage of First Alliance. You just pointed out one right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a break. We're talking about when you use the CD, when you use the savings account, what circumstances. And we'll return in a moment with more Good Money Moves on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good Money Moves continues in moments with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. We're talking Good Money Moves with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back. More of Good Money Moves with Jenna Taubel at First Alliance Credit Union. We're covering the advantages of savings accounts and certificates of deposits and when the use of each one is appropriate. So the savings accounts sound like short-term things, right? Like dishwasher, vacations, emergency funds, not short-term, but you need easy access to it.
Right. Yes.
Or
Yeah.
on the flip
So
side of it, what about the CDs?
yeah. So you'll want to maybe start considering opening a CD if you're saving for a very specific financial goal. That has a fixed date in mind. So things like vacations or remodeling your house or even holiday shopping, right? Those all you can plan for those things in advance. So of course, you might also have noticed that you could also, put that same money that you're saving for like a new car or a new appliance into a CD. But, and yes, sometimes either way would work, but you'll have to use, it really comes down to how soon do you need that thing? And is it something that you're going to have to need those funds quickly and potentially unexpectedly? So if, for instance, let's say you've just gotten your first like career job and you're starting to put money aside for your emergency fund, but you also need a newer, more reliable car so that you can get to work on time, and you could really use a newer laptop to do your remote work, and it maybe just makes more sense to keep all of that money in a savings account because you're not quite sure when that's going to come up yet, but it'll be soon.
Sure.
That way you can put money towards all of these goals and build up that account over time, and then you'll finally have enough for one of these, and you can withdraw it immediately if let's say the car breaks on the side of the road and it's just not fixable anymore, right? Those types of things.
In other words, you need a lot of flexibility.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, if you have a few months before you need to purchase either that car or the laptop or the appliance or whatever that is, and you can open up that separate CD, even potentially several CDs for each of these different goals. And then once you've got enough money for that minimum deposit requirement, right? So at first glance, that's about $500. And then you can, over time, you get that interest back, and it helps you build towards that savings goal a little bit more, right? So it is a little bit of a judgment call in some cases, and it kind of depends on the flexibility that you need and whether or not there's a definitive end date to the savings goal. Let's say if you're saving for a vacation to Hawaii in 2 years, that has a very specific end date, and you can set up a CD to expire, 6 months or 3 months before your vacation, and you'll have a good chunk of money ready to go for you that is specifically for that.
Okay. So what is the minimum at First Alliance length of a CD that you offer? 6 months?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, that's a great thing to keep in mind. If the expense is at least 6 months away, you should at least consider it then.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you know that there's not going to be a sudden emergency for that fund, a CD is a great way to go. Because again, you can set them up for 6 months at a time and just keep rolling with it, kind of like we talked about with that CD laddering strategy. If you don't have to only keep your money in one or the other, though, right? You can do a combination of the two. So you can and should use both tools to boost your finances and really achieve your goals over time. And you can open CDs with the money you're saving for a financial goal and keep the money you've saved after opening up the CD in a savings account, right? So you can kind of go back and forth between them as needed too. And you can keep your emergency fund in a savings account. I would recommend it. But once you maybe have a few $1,000s saved, like you've got a really good solid emergency fund, maybe take half of that and put it in a CD. So you still have some easy, quick access for something that happens, but you're using those emergency funds to continue to boost what you're already doing a little and help it go along a little bit faster. So again, it really is a little bit of a judgment call, but I think if you think about it in the terms of what is my end goal, what's the date these funds need to be available, and is the interest rate I'm going to get on the CD worth more than having easy access?
Sure. No, I do get it, especially with emergency fund. If you have enough banked away in there, with the
Mm-hmm.
idea that if you lost your job, you're going to need to pay your mortgage and buy groceries for
Mm-hmm.
a certain period of time using that emergency fund. If you could budget out how far out you can be, then you know that past that you could any amount of cash in the savings account past that amount you could put in a CD
Yeah,
because you're not going to have to immediately access it.
exactly.
Okay. Need a spreadsheet is what I need.
Yes, they help.
All right, great information as always, and I would advise people go back a few weeks where we talked about the CD ladder because that would really be useful when we're talking about that emergency fund.
Yes.
Okay. And there's another example of much more we could talk about. And so I'm going to throw it to you, Jenna, where we can find out more about the advantages of savings accounts and or CDs.
Yeah. Well, as always, I encourage our listeners to visit our website, firstalliancecu.com. Subscribe to our blog. We release new financial tips and advice every week, just like what we talk about on this show. You can also subscribe to Good Money Moves on Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts. And you can go back and listen to past episodes on those platforms or online as well at firstalliancecu.com/podcast or on krocnews.com. And if you have a financial topic or a question that you'd like us to cover on the show, please do not hesitate to send me an email at marketing@firstalliancecu.com. And of course, I strongly encourage you to reach out to our team at First Alliance Credit Union. They're here to help you start making good money moves today.
Of course, that is First Alliance Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA and an equal housing lender. I'm Andy Brownell, Jenna Taubel with us, and of course, thank you, Jenna.
Of course.
And we will talk to you again next week with another good money move or moves right here at News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.